The Knights Templar occupy a unique space in both history and myth. They have been portrayed as fearless crusaders, secret keepers of forbidden knowledge, inventors of modern banking, and tragic victims of political machinations. To some, they are symbols of chivalry and faith. To others, they are shadows behind centuries of conspiracy theories. But who were they, truly? The Order of the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, better known as the Knights Templar, emerged from the blood-soaked aftermath of the First Crusade. Founded to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land, they rose into one of medieval Christendom's most powerful institutions. Yet their story is one of both rise and tragic downfall. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, King Philip IV of France struck against the Templars with brutal force. Accused of heresy, the order fell. By 1314, their last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake, giving birth to centuries of speculation and legend. Did the Templars hide secret knowledge or treasure? Or were these stories born of rumor and fear? This documentary invites you to separate legend from history, to uncover what the Templars themselves might recognize, and what they surely would not. The world that birthed the Knights Templar was one of fervent faith and brutal conflict. In 1095, Pope Urban II, at the Council of Clermont, called Western Christians to liberate Jerusalem from Muslim rule, igniting the First Crusade. By 1099, Crusaders captured Jerusalem through siege, starvation, and slaughter, establishing the fragile Kingdom of Jerusalem amid hostile lands. Yet the Holy City was far from safe. Robbers, warlords, and shifting alliances turned pilgrimages into deadly gambles. Around 1119, Hugh de Payens and a band of knights offered their swords to protect pilgrims journeying through the treacherous Holy Land. Unlike other crusaders, they stayed permanently, vowing to safeguard travelers on the road to Jerusalem and Bethlehem. King Baldwin II granted them quarters on the Temple Mount, once the site of Solomon's Temple, inspiring their name. The Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, the Knights Templar. These warrior monks, bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, fuse the ideals of knighthood with monastic discipline. Their radical commitment resonated deeply in medieval Europe, where chivalry and faith burned bright. Yet their survival depended on powerful allies. It was only with the support of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux that the Templars would rise from a humble band of guardians to a sanctioned military order, laying the foundations of a brotherhood that would soon reshape the medieval world. The founding of the Knights Templar was not an overnight event, but the result of necessity, faith, and vision converging in the wake of the First Crusade. As Christian control of Jerusalem stabilized in the early 12th century, streams of pilgrims poured into the Holy Land. Many were poor, unarmed, and driven by a desire to walk in Christ's footsteps. Yet they faced deadly hazards along the winding roads, through bandit-infested hills and deserts. For leaders of the fragile Crusader states, holding Jerusalem spiritually demanded securing it practically. Without safety for pilgrims, Christian control of the city itself was in peril. Amid this harsh reality, Hugh de Payens, a noble knight who had fought in the Crusades, emerged as the driving force behind a bold new idea. Alongside Godfrey de Saint-Omer and a small group of like-minded knights, he pledged to protect travelers as an act of faith and service, bound by solemn vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. These men fused the discipline of monks with the courage of warriors. They became a brotherhood who saw each pilgrim's safety as a sacred mission. They approached Baldwin II, King of Jerusalem, who recognized the strategic advantage of a permanent force of dedicated protectors. Around 1119, Baldwin granted them a headquarters on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, within the former Al-Aqsa Mosque. believed by Crusaders to stand atop the ruins of Solomon's Temple. This location gave them their name, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, or the Knights Templar. Their base at the symbolic heart of Jerusalem cemented their identity and inspired awe among Christians in both East and West. But in these early years, the Templars faced immense challenges. Sources suggest they numbered fewer than a dozen knights, possessed no permanent income, and struggled for recognition. Their success depended on building awareness among Europe's powerful nobles and church leaders. In 1127, Hugh de Payens set out on a tour of Europe, traveling through France, England, and beyond. He met with kings, noble families, and bishops, recounting the perils pilgrims faced and the courage of his knights. His message inspired knights and lords to join the cause or offer lands and donations. His journey reached a turning point with Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, the renowned abbot and theologian whose influence stretched across Christendom. Bernard became the Templars' greatest champion, describing them as a new kind of knighthood that united martial valor with spiritual devotion. With Bernard's fervent support, the order's future changed forever. In January 1129, at the Council of Troyes in France, leading church figures gathered to deliberate on the Templars' mission. There, they composed the Latin Rule, a detailed code modeled after monastic rules, but adapted for warrior monks. The Latin Rule defined every aspect of Templar life: their hierarchy, dress, training, worship, communal meals, and even how to sleep armed. It demanded discipline, humility, and unwavering dedication to defending Christendom. With papal endorsement following the council, the Templars transformed from an obscure band of knights in Jerusalem into a pan-European organization, recognized as an official military monastic order. Their reputation soared, recruits flooded in, and donations poured into their coffers. Thus, through faith, diplomacy, and determination, the Templars emerged as one of the most powerful and enigmatic brotherhoods of the Middle Ages, poised to change the course of history. At the heart of the Knights Templars' transformation from a small band of knights into a powerful international order lay their codified way of life, the Latin Rule. Drafted and approved at the Council of Troyes in 1129, this remarkable set of regulations blended the strict routines of monastic orders with the practical needs of warriors. The rule began with a simple yet powerful directive. The Templars were to live in common without personal property, like brothers, reflecting the Christian ideals of poverty and humility. No Templar could own private wealth. All resources were shared, ensuring absolute focus on their sacred mission. Hierarchy and obedience were central to their discipline. The Grand Master wielded ultimate authority, supported by officers like the Seneschal and Marshal. Every knight and sergeant owed unwavering obedience up the chain of command, a discipline that made them feared and respected. Prayer and devotion were equally rigorous. Templars followed the divine office, praying 7 times daily. These rituals reminded them constantly that their fight was not for earthly glory, but for God's will. Their conduct and appearance reflected their vows. Members wore the iconic white mantle adorned with the red cross, symbols of purity, martyrdom, and sacrifice. Luxury was forbidden. No ornamented weapons or lavish clothes. Beards were mandatory to signify austerity, but hair had to be kept short. Their diet and discipline were austere. Meals were simple and communal. Meat was restricted. Fasting days strictly observed. Silence ruled the dining hall, broken only by readings of scripture meant to inspire contemplation and humility. The Latin Rule imposed strict military protocols. Unlike feudal knights who sought personal glory, Templars drilled relentlessly to fight as a unit. They were forbidden to retreat unless outnumbered 3 to 1, a code that made them legendary for bravery and steadfastness. Moral standards were uncompromising. Sexual activity was strictly prohibited. Contact with women was severely limited to guard chastity. Boasting was forbidden. Humility was demanded. Regular confession cleansed the soul and reinforced moral vigilance. As the order expanded, the Latin rule grew from 72 clauses to over 600 detailed articles. These later editions covered every aspect of Templar life, from maintaining armor to treating prisoners, ensuring unity among brothers stationed across Europe and the Holy Land. The rule alone, however, did not secure the order's place. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, one of the medieval church's greatest minds, provided crucial theological justification. In his famous treatise, In Praise of the New Knighthood, Bernard argued that monks who fought for Christ did not sin, but served a holy purpose, sanctifying the Templars' warrior monks in the eyes of Christendom. Together, the Latin rule and Bernard's theological support forged the ideological foundation of the order. They united Templars under a singular mission: to protect pilgrims, defend the Holy Land, and serve God as warriors in a holy cause. With discipline unmatched and faith unwavering, the Templars emerged as the embodiment of Christian knighthood. The Council of Troyes in 1129 transformed the Knights Templar from a small, regional brotherhood into a formally recognized military order, and Europe took notice. Almost overnight, nobles, monarchs, and commoners began showering the order with lands, wealth, and recruits. Within a few decades, the Templars grew into one of the most powerful organizations of the medieval world. Europe's fervor for the Crusades fueled this explosive growth. Throughout the 12th century, Christians were gripped by the belief that the Holy Land must remain under their control. Donating to the Templars became a sacred act, offering spiritual merit to those unable to take up the cross themselves. Kings and powerful lords recognized the Templars' unmatched value. Alfonso I of Aragon granted them extensive estates in Spain to support the Reconquista. Across France, England, and the Holy Roman Empire, nobles donated lands, mills, farms, and even entire villages, establishing the Templars as major landholders. To manage these vast possessions, the Templars built a sophisticated network of commanderies, regional centers where knights oversaw lands, trained recruits, gathered income, and organized supply lines to the east. By the mid-12th century, commanderies stretched across France, England, Portugal, Italy, Germany, and beyond, each a vital node connecting Europe to the Holy Land. The order's growing prestige and papal protection drew a steady stream of recruits. Young nobles eager for glory and salvation, seasoned knights seeking purpose, and commoners able to serve as sergeants all flocked to the Templars' banner. By the 1140s, they numbered in the hundreds. By century's end, they commanded thousands of disciplined fighters. Papal bulls cemented their independence and power. Successive popes granted them privileges unmatched by any other group: freedom from local taxes, immunity from secular courts, and the right to cross borders unimpeded. Pope Innocent II's 1139 bull, Omne Datum Optimum, confirmed their answerability only to the Pope, ensuring extraordinary autonomy and protection. With new wealth and resources, the Templars embarked on ambitious construction campaigns, erecting mighty fortresses that reshaped the Crusader frontier. They built Chateau Pèlerin, a sprawling citadel on the Levantine coast, Gaza Castle, guarding key routes, and the great fortress of Saft, towering over Galilee. These strongholds became the backbone of Crusader defenses and enduring symbols of Templar might. Internally, the order adapted to its rapid expansion. The Latin rule was expanded from 72 to over 600 clauses, covering every detail from command structure to the treatment of captives. A sophisticated hierarchy emerged. Marshals coordinated military campaigns. Turcopoliers led light cavalry and local auxiliaries. Regional masters directed operations across continents. By the mid-12th century, the Templars were no longer just protectors of pilgrims. They had become an international military religious corporation, one with resources rivaling kings, armies spanning Europe and the Levant, and influence capable of swaying the politics of Christendom. Yet as their power grew, so too did envy and suspicion. The Templars' rise placed them at the forefront of the struggle for the Holy Land, and set them on a path toward both glory and an ominous fate that awaited them in the centuries to come. The extraordinary rise of the Knights Templar was inextricably linked to the unique privileges granted to them by the papacy. Unlike any other institution of their time, the Templars operated largely beyond the reach of local bishops, secular lords, or even kings, a power actively reinforced by a series of decisive papal bulls. 3 bulls were especially transformative. In 1139, Pope Innocent II issued Omne Datum Optimum, the Templars' most important privilege. It exempted them from paying tithes or taxes to anyone but the Pope himself. It gave them the right to build their own chapels, appoint priests, and conduct services free from interference by local bishops, cementing their spiritual independence and freeing them from burdens that crippled others. In 1144, Pope Celestine II's Milites Templi called on the faithful to support the Templars directly with donations, presenting such contributions as acts of piety equivalent to going on crusade. Donations flooded in, financing fortresses, knights, and the vast logistics of war. Then, in 1145, Pope Eugenius III issued Militia Dii, reinforcing earlier bulls. It confirmed the Templars' right to collect and keep their revenues, and to bury their dead in Templar cemeteries, further solidifying their independence from local clergy. These papal decrees brought profound advantages. Legal immunity. Templars could not be summoned before local courts. They answered only to the Pope's authority. Disputes over Templar properties were judged by papal representatives or the order itself. Financial autonomy. Free from taxes and tithes, the Templars amassed enormous wealth, donations, rents, fees for safe passage, and profits from trade. By the mid-12th century, their economic power rivaled Europe's greatest monarchies. Operational freedom. With papal backing, Templars created a seamless network across Europe and the Holy Land. Men, horses, gold, and supplies moved from commandery to commandery, coordinated with unprecedented efficiency, allowing them to wage wars thousands of miles from home. But these privileges were not granted purely out of charity. The popes saw the Templars as indispensable, defenders of the Holy Land, protectors of pilgrims, and extensions of papal authority. By empowering them, the papacy secured a loyal, elite military force directly under Rome's command. Yet as Templar power grew, so too did resentment. Kings, bishops, and nobles began to see the Templars as untouchable rivals, arrogant knights who answered to no one but the Pope. Their wealth and independence threatened local authority, sowing seeds of envy and anger. By the late 12th century, papal-backed privileges had made the Knights Templar one of the most potent institutions in medieval Europe, revered by many, feared by others, and central to the defense of Christendom in the Crusader East. But the very power that made them indispensable would one day place them on a collision course with those who envied and despised them. While the Knights Templar are often remembered as fierce warriors, their influence extended far beyond the battlefield. Their innovative financial practices made them indispensable to monarchs, pilgrims, and merchants, and laid foundations for modern banking. As their network of commanderies grew across Europe and the Holy Land, the Templars realized that controlling wealth, goods, and information was as vital as wielding a sword. They pioneered financial services that were unprecedented in medieval Europe. One key innovation was the letter of credit. Pilgrims could deposit money with the Templars in Europe and receive a written document. a kind of medieval promissory note. When they arrived in the Holy Land, the order would pay them the equivalent amount, minus a handling fee. This system protected travelers from bandits and eliminated the need to carry large sums of cash across dangerous territories. The Templars also provided safe deposits. Nobles, merchants, and kings entrusted them with treasures, documents, and jewels. Knowing Templar castles were secure vaults, guarded by stone walls and disciplined knights. Their commanderies formed a vast network capable of transferring funds across borders. They moved money discreetly and swiftly, offering services akin to modern wire transfers, centuries before electronic banking. These transfers financed crusades, royal marriages, and diplomatic missions. Acting as royal bankers, the Templars became treasurers to kings and princes. Henry II of England and Louis IX of France used Templar coffers to pay armies and negotiate ransoms. Prince Edward, later Edward I, relied on the Templars during his crusade in 1270. Using their banking system to fund his campaign and support his forces, Templar commanderies also operated as productive estates, farming crops, raising livestock, and producing goods. Surpluses were sold in markets, generating income funneled eastward to support the Crusader war effort. Why did everyone trust them? The Templars' vows of poverty and obedience inspired confidence in a corrupt age. Their direct protection by the Pope reassured depositors. Who would dare steal from God's holy warriors? The Templars' financial innovations reshaped medieval Europe. Their standardized record-keeping set new benchmarks for accountability. Detailed ledgers tracked deposits, loans, and property income, laying foundations for modern banking procedures. Their ability to move money securely stimulated long-distance trade. Merchants dared to expand trade routes, knowing they could rely on Templar services. But this financial power also created political leverage. Kings who owed the Templars large sums found themselves dependent and wary of the order's influence. Yet the very wealth and trust they inspired would one day turn against them. As debts mounted and jealousy festered among rulers, especially in France, the Templars' banking empire shifted from asset to liability, making them irresistible targets for accusations, arrests, and betrayal. Behind the Templars' white mantles and legendary battles lay a strict, disciplined daily life, shaped by their dual identity as monks and warriors. Whether in the Holy Land or at European commanderies, Templars followed a rigorous schedule to nurture piety, maintain readiness, and preserve order within the Brotherhood. Their day began before dawn with matins, the first of 7 daily prayers. Throughout the day, bells called them to prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, and compline, ensuring they paused work or training to keep the divine office, just as monks did. Meals were eaten in silence, accompanied by readings from scripture or the rule. Their food was plain. Bread, vegetables, and watered wine formed the staples. Meat was limited, allowed only 3 days a week, reflecting monastic austerity. Outside prayer and meals, Templars drilled tirelessly with sword, lance, bow, and horse to remain ready for battle. At commanderies, they worked the land, repaired gear, oversaw tenants, and handled administrative tasks essential to sustaining their estates. Their white habit symbolized purity and chastity. Senior knights bore the iconic red cross as a sign of readiness to die for Christ. Beards were mandatory, setting them apart from clean-shaven clerics, while short hair signified humility and discipline. Jewelry and bright colors were forbidden, in keeping with their vow of poverty. Life in the order was strictly hierarchical. Knights lived alongside sergeants, non-noble brothers handling military and support duties, and chaplains who provided spiritual guidance. Commanderies were led by a commander or preceptor, who answered to regional masters and the Grand Master. Silence was enforced in dormitories and at meals to encourage reflection and self-control. The rule forbade gambling, swearing, drunkenness, and seeking personal glory. Punishments for transgressions ranged from fasting to flogging or expulsion. Hospitality was central to the Templar mission. Travelers and pilgrims were welcomed at Templar houses, offered food and shelter on dangerous roads. Brotherhood was the heart of Templar life. New initiates swore vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity in solemn ceremonies, forging bonds of faith and arms. Templars considered each other spiritual brothers, united in mission. In the Holy Land, daily life revolved around garrisoning fortresses, patrolling roads, and maintaining constant military readiness in an environment of danger. In Europe, Templars managed estates, trained recruits, raised funds, and handled correspondence linking the Order's far-flung commanderies. When a Templar fell, he was buried in a simple grave marked with the Templar cross. Mourning was brief. Brothers trusted their comrade had gone to a heavenly reward. Through unwavering adherence to daily rituals, strict discipline, and shared faith, the Templars forged unity that enabled them to endure grueling campaigns and maintain order across a sprawling international organization. An extraordinary achievement. In an age of fractured loyalties and constant warfare, the Templars' reputation as elite warriors was earned not only through their discipline and courage, but also through their meticulous organization of a formidable military and logistical machine. By the 12th and 13th centuries, they commanded hundreds of knights, thousands of supporting sergeants, and an infrastructure capable of moving men, horses, and supplies across vast distances. The Templars built some of the most advanced fortresses of the medieval world. These castles featured thick walls, towers, drawbridges, cisterns, and layered defenses, serving as military bases, logistical centers, and refuges for local populations. Key fortresses included Chateau Pèlerin, controlling the coastal road north of Caesarea, Saft Castle, dominating the Galilean hills, and Gaza Castle, guarding the southern approaches to the Holy Land. The backbone of the Templar army was their mounted knights. Clad in mail, wielding swords and lances, these knights delivered powerful charges that could shatter enemy lines. Alongside them fought sergeants, skilled as both cavalry and infantry, who filled vital support roles. In the Holy Land, the Templars employed Turcopoles, local light cavalry adept in Eastern tactics. Turcopoles provided scouting, archery, and swift raids, giving the Templars tactical flexibility unmatched by many Western armies. Supplying an army thousands of miles from Europe required a sophisticated logistical system. The Templars organized caravans carrying food, weapons, armor, horses, and building materials. Commanderies across Europe shipped goods to Mediterranean ports like Marseille and Pisa, where Templar ships ferried them to Outremer. Detailed inventories and accounts kept the army equipped and prepared, ensuring Templars were ready for campaigns at any moment. Though not a navy in the modern sense, the Templars operated fleets of ships from key ports like Acre, Jaffa, and Sidon. These vessels transported pilgrims, troops, and cargo. In wartime, they served as troop transports or joined naval blockades. Templars drilled relentlessly in cavalry maneuvers, formation fighting, and siegecraft. Their strict hierarchy and standardized training produced a cohesive fighting force, superior to the often disorganized feudal levies of other armies. The Order's extensive network of messengers and contacts spanned Christendom and the Islamic world. Templars gathered intelligence on enemy movements, negotiated ransoms, and coordinated with Crusader allies. Their ability to send messages swiftly between Europe and Outremer made them invaluable to military leaders and the papacy. Contemporary chroniclers, Christian and Muslim alike, testified to the Templars' ferocity and discipline. Ibn al-Athir described them as the fiercest Frankish warriors, feared for their unwavering resistance, bound by a code forbidding retreat unless vastly outnumbered. The Templars earned admiration for bravery and inspired fear in their enemies. Through their castles, cavalry, supply lines, ships, and intelligence network, the Templars forged a military and naval force central to their success and mystique, making them the spearhead of Christian power in the Holy Land and one of the most effective fighting organizations of the medieval world. The Knights Templar were forged in the crucible of war. From their earliest days, they stood at the forefront of the Crusader state's defense, becoming the vanguard of the armies of the Latin East. As the Christian kingdoms of the Holy Land faced constant threats from powerful Muslim forces, the Templars earned a reputation for bravery and grim determination. Following their formal recognition at the Council of Troyes in 1129, the Templars quickly joined Crusader campaigns across the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Throughout the 1130s and 1140s, they fought in raids and sieges, honing their skills and testing their tactics against determined foes. The fall of Edessa in 1144, a devastating blow to the Crusader cause, revealed the fragility of Christian control in the Holy Land. It underscored the urgent need for a permanent, elite military force like the Templars. In 1153, the Templars proved their worth during the Siege of Ascalon. This strategic port, controlled by the Fatimids of Egypt, had long served as a base for raids into Crusader lands. Capturing Ascalon was essential to secure the southern border of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Templar Knights were among the first to storm breaches in Ascalon's walls, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat through the city's narrow streets. When the city fell, the Crusaders gained a vital port and strengthened their frontier with Egypt for a generation. On the battlefield, the Templars became renowned for their disciplined heavy cavalry charges. Unlike feudal levies who fought for individual glory, Templar Knights trained to move in coordinated formations, delivering crushing assaults that could smash enemy lines. They learned to adapt Western mounted tactics to Eastern warfare, countering the fast-moving light cavalry of Muslim armies by combining knights, sergeants, and Turcopole auxiliaries into flexible, deadly forces. Their early victories and steadfast defense earned respect among Christian allies and instilled fear in Muslim opponents. Chroniclers praised their refusal to surrender and willingness to fight to the death, qualities that terrified enemies and emboldened Crusader armies. Beyond the battlefield, the Templars' constant patrols and garrisoning of castles stabilized Crusader borders. Their presence provided a measure of security for settlers, traders, and pilgrims in the often hostile Holy Land. They ensured communication and supply lines between the coastal ports and inland strongholds remained open, sustaining the fragile Christian states. Key leaders like Robert de Craon, the second Grand Master, guided the order through these early campaigns. Robert not only led Templars in battle, but secured vital papal support and generous donations across Europe, resources that kept the order fighting. Through these formative campaigns, the Templars evolved from humble protectors of pilgrims into a professional fighting force, central to the survival of the Crusader states. Their early engagements and victories cemented their place as an indispensable component of the Crusader military machine. The second half of the 12th century brought the pinnacle of Templar prestige and the beginning of their decline. It was marked by one of the greatest military disasters in Crusader history, the Battle of Hattin in 1187, a cataclysmic defeat that reshaped the Holy Land's fate. By the 1180s, alliances among Crusader states were unraveling, while Muslim forces unified under the brilliant and determined Salah ad-Din, known in the West as Saladin. Templar Grand Master Gerard de Riedfort, ambitious and headstrong, played a key role in heightening tensions. His rash decisions often undermined more cautious voices among Crusader leaders. In July 1187, after Saladin laid siege to Tiberias, King Guy of Jerusalem led the Crusader army, including the Templars and Hospitallers, across the arid plateau near the Horns of Hattin. Saladin masterfully cut the Crusaders off from water encircling them under the scorching sun. Dehydration and exhaustion crippled their ranks. When battle was finally joined on July 4th, Crusader discipline collapsed. Saladin's cavalry and archers closed in, devastating the Christian army. The true cross, the holiest relic carried into battle, was captured. An immense spiritual and symbolic blow to Christendom. Nearly the entire Crusader army was killed or taken prisoner. The Templars and Hospitallers, forming the rearguard, fought with ferocity, but were overwhelmed. After the battle, Saladin ordered the execution of nearly all captured Templar and Hospitaller knights, aiming to break the military order's power once and for all. The consequences of Hattin were swift and devastating. Muslim forces swept through the Holy Land, capturing Acre, Jaffa, and countless other strongholds. On October 2nd, 1187, Jerusalem itself fell to Saladin after a brief siege. The loss of the Holy City shocked Europe, igniting the call for the Third Crusade. Betrayals and blunders among Crusader lords and military orders were widely blamed. Chroniclers debated whether Gerard de Riedfort's recklessness, lack of unified command, or internal rivalries doomed the Crusaders as much as Saladin's military brilliance. Despite the catastrophe, resistance continued. Conrad of Montferrat, supported by surviving Templars, held Tyre, a crucial coastal city that became a beacon of defiance. Templars who escaped regrouped in remaining fortresses, organizing defenses that kept Crusader hopes alive until the arrival of the Third Crusade. The psychological impact of Hattin was profound. It shattered the myth of Crusader invincibility, casting a long shadow over the Templars' reputation. Yet their determination to fight on and rebuild preserved their place as the backbone of resistance in the Holy Land. The Battle of Hattin marked a turning point not only in the Crusader state's fortunes, but also in the Templars' history. Though they survived as a powerful order, the haunting memory of Hattin underscored the desperate struggle that lay ahead. In the wake of Jerusalem's fall in 1187, a shockwave swept across Europe. The loss inspired widespread penitence and a determination that culminated in the Third Crusade, 1189 to 1192. At its heart were the Knights Templar, who, despite devastating losses at Hattin, would play a pivotal role in one of the Middle Ages' most storied campaigns. Pope Gregory V issued Audita Tremendi, calling upon Christian rulers to reclaim Jerusalem. Answering the call were three of Europe's mightiest monarchs: King Richard III of England, King Philip II of France, and Emperor Frederick the Mourant Barbarossa. With fortified positions along the Levantine coast, the Templars provided essential bases for the arriving Crusader armies, transforming ports and castles into hubs of supply and strategy. The Crusades' first major clash came at the Siege of Acre, 1189 to 1191. Acre was Saladin's crucial coastal fortress, and its capture would open the path for further advances. Templars joined the Crusader host, bringing siege engineers, ships, and seasoned warriors. They suffered heavy casualties in relentless assaults on Acre's walls. After 2 years of brutal fighting, the city fell in July 1191, a vital victory that restored a Crusader foothold in the Holy Land. King Richard the Lionheart quickly emerged as the Crusades' dominant leader. He recognized the Templars' unmatched expertise and relied on them as shock troops and advisors. Chronicles tell of Templar knights riding beside Richard into battle, executing disciplined cavalry charges that shattered enemy formations. Richard's preference for bold, decisive action matched the Templars' own aggressive style. On September 7, 1191, Richard's army marched south along the coast toward Jaffa, shadowed by Saladin's forces. At Arsuf, Saladin launched a massive assault. The Templars and Hospitallers, positioned in the vanguard and rearguard, absorbed the initial attacks. Then, at Richard's command, the Templars led a devastating countercharge that smashed Saladin's troops, securing a crucial victory that preserved the Crusader advance. Despite battlefield successes, Jerusalem remained beyond reach. its walls too strong for direct assault. Negotiations followed, leading to the Treaty of Jaffa in September 1192. The treaty preserved a narrow coastal strip from Jaffa to Tyre under Christian control and secured unarmed pilgrim access to Jerusalem, an imperfect but vital compromise. Throughout the Third Crusade, the Templars acted as guides, quartermasters, and battlefield leaders. Their fortresses became centers of Crusader administration and supply, keeping armies fed, armed, and organized. Their survival and resolve after Hatton helped maintain morale among Crusader forces, proving indispensable to the campaign's endurance. Though the Crusade failed to recapture Jerusalem, it stabilized the Crusader presence in the Levant for decades. The Templars' performance during this campaign solidified their reputation as Christendom's most reliable and professional fighting force. Yet the Third Crusade also marked the beginning of a long, grinding struggle to hold the Holy Land, a struggle that would only grow more desperate as Muslim power continued to rise. After the Third Crusade, the Crusader states lingered in a twilight of uneasy truces and intermittent wars. Though Jerusalem remained under Muslim control, the Christian presence endured in a chain of fortified coastal cities. The Knights Templar played a central role in holding these last bastions of Latin Christendom, even as relentless pressure and internal divisions eroded their strength. The Treaty of Jaffa preserved a narrow coastal strip with cities like Acre, Tyre, Jaffa, and Tripoli. The Templars poured their energy into fortifying these enclaves and maintaining lifelines to Europe. Acre emerged as the beating heart of the Crusader states. From the late 12th century onward, it became the de facto capital of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. On Acre's northern waterfront, the Templars built a massive fortress, one of the most imposing castles of the East. This citadel housed hundreds of knights and sergeants, guarded treasures, stockpiled weapons, and symbolized unwavering Crusader resolve. Other strongholds secured crucial approaches: Sidon and Beirut to the north, Gaza and Saft, inland and south. Chateau Pèlerin, built after the Fifth Crusade, rose as one of the largest Crusader fortresses ever, with towering walls designed to withstand prolonged sieges. Yet the threats grew ever more severe. Over the 13th century, Muslim powers regrouped under formidable leaders like the Ayyubids and later the Mamluks. Their strength posed a constant danger to the fragile Crusader enclaves. Meanwhile, factional rivalries among Latin nobles, feuding Venetian and Genoese merchants, and competition between the Templars and Hospitallers weakened unity. These divisions squandered opportunities to strengthen the Crusader position. The Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh Crusades brought new armies and flickers of hope. The Templars supported these campaigns with fortresses, funds, and manpower. But poor coordination among Crusaders doomed lasting success. The final onslaught began in the mid-13th century. Mamluk Sultan Baybars launched systematic campaigns to wipe out Crusader outposts. In 1268, Antioch, one of the oldest and grandest Crusader states, fell to his forces, sending shockwaves through Christendom. The last stand came in 1291, when Sultan al-Ashraf Khalil besieged Acre with overwhelming force. Templars, Hospitallers, and other defenders fought desperately amid collapsing walls and burning streets. On May 18, 1291, Acre fell after a brutal assault, ending nearly 2 centuries of Christian rule in the Holy Land. Chateau Pèlerin and other remaining fortresses were abandoned or captured soon after. The surviving Templars evacuated to Cyprus, moving their headquarters to Limassol. Though the order remained wealthy and influential in Europe, its founding mission, defending the Holy Land, was gone. The trauma of Acre's fall devastated European morale, cast doubt on future crusades, and weakened support for the military orders. With the Crusader cities reduced to ruins, the Templars shifted from frontline defenders to stewards of properties in Europe, a transformation that left them vulnerable to powerful enemies eager to seize their wealth and break their independence. Even as the Crusader states in the East crumbled, The power of the Knights Templar did not fade. It shifted. Across the breadth of Europe, from Portugal's Atlantic shores to the plains of Hungary, the Templar Network flourished, forming an empire without borders. Their commanderies, fortified estates, and administrative hubs became the backbone of the order. Each commandery was a world in miniature: farmland, vineyards, workshops, and mills. They trained knights, recruited initiates, and funded the order's missions through the wealth they produced. These estates provided food, horses, and weapons for crusades, while also serving as shelters for pilgrims and centers of local law. In France, the birthplace of the Templars, their presence stretched from Champagne to Provence. In England, they built the iconic Temple Church in London, still standing as a testament to their legacy. In Portugal and Aragon, they fortified the Christian frontier, aiding the Reconquista. In Germany, Italy, Hungary, and beyond, Templar commanderies protected trade and supported regional crusades. Their churches, often round, like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, symbolized the order's spiritual roots. Their most famous structures, like the Convento de Cristo in Tamar, stood as bold reminders of their sacred mission. Administration was rigorous. Commanderies were grouped into provinces, each governed by a master who reported directly to the Grand Master. A network of couriers maintained constant communication between Europe and the Holy Land, faster and more secure than any rival. Their ledgers and records were precise, a rarity in a world ruled by the sword rather than the pen. This efficiency made them not only wealthy landholders, but indispensable allies and formidable players in the political theater of Europe. But their privileges, papal protections, tax exemptions, and international freedom also bred envy. The Templars moved freely across kingdoms, dealt with kings and popes, and operated beyond local laws. Their independence, their wealth, and their secretive nature made them both respected and feared. By the 13th century, the Templars had built more than a military brotherhood. They had created a continent-spanning system, disciplined, loyal, and powerful. Yet this very strength would cast a long shadow, one that would attract the gaze of those who envied and feared what they could not control. Throughout their nearly two-century existence, the Knights Templar navigated a treacherous path between loyalty and autonomy, balancing their obligations to the Pope with their growing entanglements with Europe's monarchs. From their founding, the Templars were placed under the direct protection of the papacy. A series of powerful papal bulls granted them extraordinary privileges: exemption from taxes, freedom to build their own chapels, and exclusive jurisdiction under the Pope himself. For the Church, the Templars were ideal champions of Christendom, disciplined warrior monks who united military strength with spiritual devotion. Popes depended on them, not just as crusaders, but as financiers, messengers, and guardians of church wealth and political security. Yet over time, that papal connection would become a vulnerability. Monarchs initially welcomed the order. Kings found the Templars to be loyal, capable, and useful, advisors in war, protectors of treasure, and trustees of vital state projects. King Alfonso I of Aragon left them land in his will. Henry II of England used them to bridge disputes with the Vatican. Louis IX of France relied on them in his Crusades, but admiration gave way to unease. The Templars' tax immunity, legal protections, and political neutrality provoked suspicion. They owned vast lands, answered to no king, and refused to serve as political pawns. Even more troubling, many monarchs owed them money. By the late 13th century, debts to the order had grown so large that repayment seemed impossible, and in France, the storm broke. King Philip IV, Philip the Fair, viewed the Templars with deep distrust. He owed them fortunes. He feared their loyalty to the Pope. He desired their wealth and infrastructure. In October 1307, Philip struck. The uneasy balance between spiritual and temporal power collapsed, leading to the betrayal, persecution, and destruction of the Knights Templar. Their fate was sealed not by battlefield defeat, but by the politics of power, caught between the throne and the altar. Favored by popes, feared by kings, their unique status led to both their rise and their ruin. No aspect of the Templars' legacy has stirred more fascination than the myth of hidden knowledge. Secrets they supposedly guarded, relics they concealed, and wisdom forbidden by the Church. These legends gained traction after the Order's fall in the early 14th century. Tortured confessions claimed that Templars spat on the cross, worshipped a mysterious head, and performed secret rituals. Most of these admissions were later recanted, yet suspicion remained. Were the Templars hiding something? To contemporaries, the notion wasn't far-fetched. An elite group with its own rules, chapels, and hierarchy, answerable only to the Pope, could plausibly guard ancient truths known only to its inner circle. Later, writers began to tie the Templars to esoteric traditions. Some believed they recovered forbidden knowledge beneath the Temple of Solomon, wisdom connected to the Kabbalah, Hermeticism, or early Gnostic teachings. In these tales, the Templars are not just knights, but guardians of sacred mysteries, silenced by those who feared the power of what they knew. Two of the most enduring legends are the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant. Romanticized medieval literature began linking the Grail with the Templars, casting them as keepers of divine bloodlines or spiritual revelations. Others claim the Ark was uncovered in Jerusalem and hidden in Europe, perhaps in places like Rosslyn Chapel. Another puzzle is the Idol of Baphomet. Descriptions vary: a bearded head, a figure with many faces, a ritual object. Later, occultists reimagined Baphomet as a horned androgynous deity symbolizing dualities, further linking the Templars to occultism. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Freemasonry adopted the myth. Certain Masonic rites claimed descent from the Templars, depicting them as a secret brotherhood that survived underground, preserving enlightenment and sacred truth. Though these Masonic Templar links are symbolic, they reinforced the legend of the Templars as custodians of forbidden knowledge. Why does the myth endure? Their fall was sudden and suspicious, their secrecy was real, and their presence on the Temple Mount, one of the most sacred places on earth, continues to stir questions. The truth may be lost to history, but the idea of the Templars as guardians of the unknown has transformed them from historical actors into legends, vessels for mystery, power, and the hope that ancient truths are still waiting to be found. Beyond their reputation as holy warriors, the Knights Templar forged an empire of commerce and diplomacy that spanned continents. To sustain their military campaigns, they built one of the most efficient logistical networks in the medieval world, managing farmland, forges, fleets, and finances with unmatched precision. Across Europe and the Levant, the Templars' commanderies became economic engines. They cultivated vast estates, raised livestock, operated mills and vineyards, and produced surpluses that flowed into local markets. From Bordeaux to Acre, their warehouses brimmed with grain, wool, weapons, and wine, supporting both Crusader garrisons and the surrounding population. The Order's maritime presence extended their reach further still. Templar fleets sailed between ports in France, Italy, the Holy Land, and even North Africa. Their ships transported goods, pilgrims, and soldiers, and served as neutral vessels in times of political unrest. Through partnerships with Venetian and Genoese merchants, the Templars embedded themselves in international trade, but their influence wasn't limited to commerce. The Templars were trusted intermediaries in diplomacy, negotiating ransoms, brokering ceasefires, and carrying sealed letters from kings to popes. Their neutrality, papal protection, and disciplined conduct made them ideal emissaries in an age torn by rivalry and suspicion. In the volatile Levant, they balanced zeal with pragmatism. Templar commanders forged relationships with Muslim emirs, Orthodox bishops, and Jewish leaders, navigating a multicultural landscape through alliances, truces, and prisoner exchanges. They understood that survival depended not only on strength, but on strategy. Their commercial activities also gave rise to a new kind of service: legal and financial consultation. They advised nobles on estate planning, resolved disputes over tithes and land, and held funds in trust for monarchs and monasteries. Their record-keeping, security, and discretion made them the medieval world's most trusted financial institution. By the end of the 13th century, the Templars had become power brokers without borders: merchants, bankers, diplomats, and administrators. Their empire ran parallel to those of kings and popes. But such influence came at a cost. As political tides shifted and Crusader victories faded, the very tools of Templar power would become the instruments of their downfall. By the late 13th century, the dream of a Christian kingdom in the Holy Land had collapsed. For nearly 2 centuries, Crusader armies had carved out fragile outposts in foreign lands, defended by the sword, the cross, and the unwavering conviction of orders like the Knights Templar. But now, that world was ending. The Mamluks, a fierce warrior dynasty from Egypt, rose with unstoppable force. Under leaders like Baibars, Kalawun, and Al-Ashraf Khalil, they dismantled the Crusader states piece by piece, crushing the once mighty Christian strongholds. In 1291, Acre fell in a final catastrophic siege. Thousands died. The Templars who survived retreated to Cyprus, their mission shattered. No serious crusade would return. The defense of the Holy Land, the very reason the Templars existed, was over. On Cyprus, the Templars tried to rebuild. From Limassol, they maintained ships, moved funds, and proposed new campaigns. But Europe no longer listened. The spiritual justification for their power had vanished. Questions echoed across Christendom. Why had the Holy Land fallen? Had God abandoned them? Should warrior monks still receive donations if there were no battles left to fight? Meanwhile, the crusading ideal itself was twisting. No longer aimed at Jerusalem, Crusades now targeted Christian heretics and political enemies. The Templars, bound to the old vision, seemed out of step with a changing world. Their independence, wealth, and secrecy began to draw suspicion. Monarchs grew resentful. Popes turned distant. Once seen as heroes of Christendom, the Templars now stood alone, untethered, misunderstood, and vulnerable. By the early 1300s, they still held lands, ships, and gold. But without a holy war to justify them, they had become a kingdom within kingdoms. And kingdoms have enemies. The final blow would not come from the east, but from within the heart of Europe. It would begin with coordinated arrests at dawn on a Friday the 13th. With the fall of the Crusader states, the Knights Templar lost their battlefield purpose, but their empire of land, wealth, and privilege remained. No longer seen as protectors of the Holy Land, they had become something more unsettling: a powerful, independent institution operating across Christendom, beyond the reach of kings. By 1300, the Templars controlled vast estates, fortresses, ports, and treasuries. They lent to kings, advised nobles, and stored fortunes beneath their commanderies. They answered to no crown, only the Pope. And that made them dangerous. King Philip IV of France, called Philip the Fair, owed them a fortune. He had borrowed heavily to fund wars, crush dissent, and manipulate the papacy. But now, with coffers drained and his enemies weakened, Philip's gaze turned toward the one group he could not control: the Templars. In their wealth, he saw salvation. In their independence, he saw insubordination. Rumors already circled, whispers of arrogance, heresy, secret rites, and forbidden worship. No proof, no trials, just fear and opportunity. Philip began to prepare. He controlled the French clergy. He had relocated the papacy to Avignon. He had turned the Inquisition into a political weapon. All he needed was a spark. In 1306, Templar Grand Master Jacques de Molay arrived in Paris, at Philip's invitation. They spoke of crusades, alliances, duty. What de Molay didn't know was that he was walking into a trap. The following year, the king struck. October 13th, 1307, a Friday. The Order of the Temple was about to be crushed, not by enemy swords, but by royal ink and whispered lies. The fall of the Knights Templar did not come from battle. It came from betrayal. King Philip V of France, burdened by debt and consumed by power, saw in the Templars not allies, but obstacles. In 1307, he made his move, not with swords, but with parchment, secrecy, and terror. It wasn't a trial, it was a purge. A silent coup disguised as justice. Early that year, Philip set his plot in motion. Secret arrest warrants, fabricated charges, heresy, blasphemy, idolatry, sodomy. A full assault on the character of an entire order. The plan: strike fast, strike everywhere, seize everything. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, before the sun rose, the trap was sprung. Templars were arrested across France. Jacques de Molay, Grand Master of the Order, was seized in Paris, betrayed during a royal funeral he had attended by invitation. The vaults of the temple were sealed. The Brotherhood, caught unarmed and unaware, fell without a fight. Under torture, the confessions came. Confessions of spitting on crosses, worshipping idols, denying Christ. Lies born of agony, used to smear the Templars in the eyes of Christendom. Even de Molay, under unbearable pressure, broke, but only temporarily. Philip's campaign continued. Preachers spread the word. Decrees praised the king's courage. Trials were staged for spectacle. The Pope, Clement V, shocked and politically cornered, gave in. Philip had control. Other rulers hesitated. England, Aragon, Portugal. But the machinery was already grinding forward. The charge had been made. The world's most powerful order was now branded as heretics, and this was only the beginning. The dawn raids of October 13th, 1307 were only the beginning. What followed was not justice, but punishment. The Knights Templar, once revered as defenders of the faith, now found themselves branded as heretics and traitors. Their trial did not unfold in a court of truth. It unraveled in chains, cells, and flames. In France, under King Philip IV's direct command, a brutal inquisition began. Guillaume de Nogaret, the king's legal architect, orchestrated a campaign of torture to extract confessions from men sworn to silence. The strappado, the rack, endless darkness, hunger, pain. One by one, confessions were forced. Men admitted to spitting on crosses, denying Christ, worshipping idols in the shape of a head or beast. But the stories contradicted each other. The charges shifted. The truth faded into the flickering shadows of the dungeon walls. Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, broke and then recanted. So did Geoffroy de Charnay. Their strength would cost them dearly. Pope Clement V, stunned by Philip's aggression, tried to reclaim control. He summoned his own inquiry, Faciens Misericordiam. In Avignon, surrounded by French pressure, he wavered. He absolved the leaders in secret, as the Chignon parchment would one day reveal, but he said nothing publicly. Silence under fear became complicity. In 1310, Philip made his example. 54 Templars, who refused to reaffirm their tortured confessions, were burned alive outside Paris. The smoke rose. The message was clear. Across Europe, trials played out with less cruelty. Many Templars were acquitted, Others were absorbed quietly into other lives. But in France, the heart of the conspiracy, the order was already broken. The battlefield had been replaced by the tribunal, the sword by the chain. The crusading Brotherhood of Christ had become victims of a darker crusade, one waged not by Saracens, but by the hands of their own kings. As Templars wasted away in prisons, their fate no longer lay in their own hands. It rested in the hands of a pope under siege. Pope Clement V had absolved the order's leaders in secret, but surrounded by threats and royal power, he could not, or would not, defend them publicly. In 1311, Clement convened the Council of Vienne to resolve the question once and for all. Bishops, cardinals, and envoys from across Christendom gathered in heated debate. Some urged reform, others demanded dissolution. A few dared speak in defense of the Templars, but truth was not the only force in the council chamber. King Philip IV of France arrived nearby with his army, a silent but unmistakable threat. The message was clear: act or face division. On March 22, 1312, Pope Clement issued the Bull Vox in Excelso. With a sad heart, he wrote, not by judicial sentence, but by apostolic provision. The order of the temple was suppressed. No guilt, no heresy, just suspicion and scandal. The Templars were dissolved, not by justice, but by fear. Their properties were ordered transferred to the Hospitallers, though in many places, local rulers kept the spoils. Some knights were sent to monasteries. Others faded into silence. In France, they burned. Across Europe, reactions varied. In England, King Edward II hesitated, but eventually complied. In Portugal, the Order of Christ emerged. In Aragon, the Order of Montesa rose. In Germany and Hungary, investigations dismissed the charges entirely. But in France, the purge was total. Philip had gotten what he wanted. Clement V, lawyer, diplomat, pope, had tried to preserve the church's unity. In doing so, he buried the truth. His absolution of the Templars, recorded in the Chinon parchment, remained hidden. He died in 1314, shortly after condemning the order's last leaders. The order of the temple was gone, their lands divided, their names disgraced, their story silenced. And yet, it was not quite the end. March 18th, 1314. On the banks of the Seine River in Paris, as the shadow of Notre Dame stretches across the water, the final chapter of the Knights Templar is written, not in ink, but in fire. Jacques de Molay, last Grand Master of the Order, has spent nearly 7 years in chains, tortured, isolated, forgotten by the world he once helped defend. Alongside him stands Geoffroy de Charnay, preceptor of Normandy. That morning, a royal tribunal gathers. Their verdict is already written. The two men are expected to bow their heads, accept life imprisonment, and vanish into history. But then, defiance. Molay rises and speaks. I am not guilty of these crimes. I have betrayed my brothers and myself out of fear. I now declare the truth. Charnay echoes his words. The court freezes in disbelief. Philip IV, watching from afar, is incensed. There will be no appeals, no further trials. He orders them burned alive, immediately. That same day, the two Templars are led to a small island in the Seine, the Ile des Juifs, where the pyres await. Molay asks to face the cathedral. He clasps his hands in prayer. As the flames rise, he makes one final declaration. God knows who is wrong and has sinned. Before the year is out, God will summon you to his judgment. Within a month, Pope Clement V is dead. By year's end, Philip IV follows. In time, his sons will die without heirs, and France will fall into chaos. Whether curse or coincidence, the legend is born. Jacques de Molay does not scream. He does not beg. He dies with dignity, with silence, with truth. And in doing so, he transforms from prisoner to martyr, from condemned heretic to immortal legend. In 1312, the mighty order of the Knights Templar was formally suppressed by papal decree. But the order's disappearance was not clean, nor final. With vast estates, legendary treasures, and thousands of members scattered across Christendom, the question remained: what became of the Templars? Pope Clement V ordered their assets transferred to the Knights Hospitallers. But politics, greed, and local resistance turned that ideal into chaos. In France, King Philip IV seized large swaths of Templar wealth before the Hospitallers received anything. Lands were delayed in transfer. Treasure and archives vanished. Some were never seen again. In England, King Edward II hesitated, but eventually complied. Yet nobles and royal agents often kept what they seized. Transfer was sluggish. Some properties remained in limbo for decades. In Iberia, kings took a different route. Rather than destroy the Templars, they transformed them. In Portugal, the Order of Christ was created in 1319, absorbing Templar members, lands, and ideals. In Aragon, the Order of Montesa followed in 1317, approved by the Pope and filled with former Templars. Elsewhere, in Italy, Germany, and the Holy Roman Empire, enforcement was inconsistent. Many properties were divided among local nobles, religious houses, or forgotten entirely. And what of the men themselves? Some Templars, especially in France, died in prison, victims of royal vengeance. Others were dispersed into monasteries or quietly retired. A few simply vanished. In England and Iberia, many were treated with dignity, granted pensions, or absorbed into new orders. Though executions were rare outside France, the Templar Brotherhood was shattered. Their archives, records, and financial ledgers mostly disappeared. Burned, hidden, absorbed, or preserved in secret. The absence of documentation only fed suspicion. Rumors of secret Templar knowledge, hidden relics, and buried treasure flourished for centuries. But even in absence, the order never truly vanished. Templar crosses still adorned stone chapels. Fortresses stood tall across Europe. Oral traditions whispered through generations. And in Portugal, the legacy of the Templars lived on, in plain sight. The order was gone, but its legend had only begun. Though the Order of the Knights Templar was formally dissolved in 1312, their legacy refused to die. Across Europe, stories began to circulate, not of their destruction, but of their escape. Had they survived in secret? Theories of Templar survival took root almost immediately. Some spoke of ships slipping out of La Rochelle's harbor before Philip's men arrived. Others believed knights fled to Scotland, Portugal, or the Swiss Alps, carrying with them relics, secrets, and treasure. In Scotland, legend claims exiled Templars found sanctuary with Robert the Bruce and rode again at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, cloaked in white, fighting beside the Scots against the English. While no contemporary records confirm their presence, the timing, with de Molay's death just months earlier, only adds to the intrigue. Elsewhere, truth blurs into fact. In Portugal, King Dinis refused to destroy the order. With papal blessing, he established the Order of Christ in 1319. Former Templars joined en masse. Their castles, symbols, and traditions lived on. The Order of Christ would later guide the Age of Discovery, with Prince Henry the Navigator as Grand Master. And what of Switzerland? Some claim that escaped Templars became the foundation of Swiss military discipline, influencing the militias that would evolve into the famed Swiss Guard. Though intriguing, this theory lacks hard evidence, but no tale has captured the imagination quite like the Templar treasure. Gold, relics, secret archives, all vanished as the order fell. Had it been hidden? Smuggled aboard ships bound for distant shores, buried beneath chapels, or lost forever? Some believe it lies beneath Rosslyn Chapel, wrapped in Masonic mystery. Others search Oak Island, following cryptic clues and centuries-old whispers. Meanwhile, Templar symbols and rituals reappeared, not on battlefields, but in Freemasonry. By the 17th century, secretive fraternal orders began invoking Templar imagery. The Scottish Rite, the York Rite, rituals echoing the brotherhood, secrecy, and spiritual ideals of the old order. Whether by myth, memory, or metaphor, the Templars endured. Today, scholars distinguish fact from legend, but the legends refuse to die. In vanished gold, in carved stone, in whispers of lost voyages and secret rites, the Templars live on, not in commanderies, but in imagination. Not by decree, but by belief. By the 18th century, the Knights Templar had long since vanished from the battlefields of history, but they were more alive in the imagination of Europe than ever before. They were no longer just monks and warriors. They had become symbols of secrecy, wisdom, resistance, and truth denied. At the heart of this rebirth stood Freemasonry. During the Age of Enlightenment, aristocrats, scholars, and reformers gathered in Masonic lodges. Among their rituals and ideals, a new mythology emerged. The Templars hadn't died. They had gone underground. Masonic rites, particularly the Scottish Rite and York Rite, began incorporating Templar degrees. The symbols were familiar: red crosses, skulls, swords, and secret oaths. But this was no military order. It was a spiritual brotherhood, drawing inspiration from the Templars' downfall and turning history into moral legend. They weren't alone. Romantic writers painted the Templars as martyrs of conscience, guardians of ancient wisdom, betrayed by kings and popes. To revolutionaries, the Templars became icons of resistance, echoing their struggle against tyranny. And to esoteric thinkers, the Templars were keepers of forbidden truth. Eliphas Levi linked them to Baphomet, reinterpreted not as a demon, but a mystical symbol of duality. Others imagined them safeguarding the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, or secret Gnostic texts hidden from the Church. Fact became fantasy. Fantasy became faith. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the Templars surged back into popular culture. In books, they appear in Ivanhoe, Foucault's Pendulum, and the Da Vinci Code, portrayed as secret guardians of bloodlines and ancient conspiracies. In film and television, they show up in Indiana Jones, National Treasure, Nightfall, and Assassin's Creed. Sometimes heroes, sometimes villains, always cloaked in mystery. In video games, they are architects of power, hidden empires, and global control. The Templar name became an archetype, a story engine for the eternal clash between truth and silence, freedom and authority, faith and power. Even today, modern groups claim Templar identity. Some are chivalric orders focused on Christian charity. Some are Masonic rites, keeping the symbols alive in fraternal ceremonies. Others blur the line, dabbling in pseudo-history, conspiracy, and myth. But the message is clear. Though the historical Templars were destroyed by kings, their legacy lives on, in rituals, in media, in mystery. They are no longer merely history. They are myth. Betrayed by the world, burned at the stake, but never forgotten.